This is Aurora with Supercharged Science. Are you ready to do a class in marine biology and life science? We're going to get started at the top of the hour, but I thought I would come in a little bit early so I can get all of my hellos done before the top of the hour. So if you would like a special hello or a shout out to you, go ahead and type it in the comments. Tell me where you're from. Tell me your name. You can give me your age if you like, but you don't have to. And also just your state, just the state that you live in. If you live outside the United States, also please include your country. So I wanted to extend a special welcome to everyone. We're actually going to be doing a really cool experiment. We're going to measure the size of a molecule today. We're going to talk about cells, we're going to talk about geometry, math, surface area, you name it. So today is going to be, it's going to have enough content for kids ages of about 6 all the way up to 17. And we're going to break off into different areas and different topics so you don't have to stay for so little kids don't have to stay for the whole thing. Actually, before we get deep into the math stuff, we're actually going to have you go play in the bathtub with a boat experiment that I want you to do. So my name is Aurora with Supercharged Science. If you are just starting, if you've never been in one of our, let me try that again. If this is your first experience with Supercharged Science, I want to extend a special welcome to you. My name is Aurora. I'm a mechanical engineer, university instructor. I fly airplanes. I got my pilot's license when I was 17. I started flying when I was 17. I got my license at 19. And so I'm crazy wild about science. I did high school and college at the same time. I worked for NASA Ames in Moffett Field. So I have a lot of experience teaching kids. I've been teaching at the university level since I was 21, and lately I've been teaching K through 12. And so what that means is that I'm in the community, in the local area, and I'm actually teaching hands-on science to kids as well as doing it worldwide through Supercharged Science. So Supercharged Science has been around since about 1999. So we have been doing a lot of hands-on science for many, many years. So if you would like a shout out, make sure you say your name. We have Luke from Michigan. Hello, good morning. We have Heidi from Louisiana, and Crystal and Elisha from Idaho. Hello, welcome. We have Michaela. We are new. Hi, Michaela. Welcome to our class. And we have Anita. Is this a online class? Yes, this is it right here, like right now. Don't go anywhere else. This is it. So the link at the bottom that you're seeing, this is if you want to be a part of the really big class tomorrow. So the class tomorrow is not on Facebook Live because there's a worksheet and there's materials I need to get to you before class. We can't do that on Facebook. And it's also a big class. It's like 90 minutes plus. So we're going to do that on our own personal private web servers. We have our own webinar thing going on. It's not Zoom, don't worry about it, but we have our own special way that we do that. And so when you sign up on this link, make sure you sign up early. We had over almost 5,000 people in the last one, so we want to make sure that you get a spot too. So you want to, you can sign up at that link, open up a new web browser so you're not disconnected from this page. You can sign up at that link, and when you sign up, you will get an email with all that information in it. Okay, so that's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. So tomorrow's class is not here. It's going to be at this link right here because it's such a bigger class. Okay, so we have more hellos. We got people emailing them. Okay, so let's get those too. So we have hello from Josie and Nick in Minnesota. Hi, and we have Sadia and Elise or Asaya from California. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Abby has Jeffrey that says hello, and we have India here. So hello everyone, welcome. We have Oliver from Germany, and we have Kaylee and Lucy from China. Hello, I'm wondering how you're connecting with this class. That's amazing. Oh, good job. And Joelle and Cameron, hello, welcome. We have Abigail from South America. And we have Cameron from Colorado. You see how this is going to get a little crazy pretty soon. So we typically have a couple hundred people on the live version of the class, and then after this class is over, we will have several tens of thousands of people watching the class. So not everybody can make this time. In fact, the family that was from Australia woke their kids up at 4 a.m. and they were in front of the computer ready to go. So if that's you, I didn't see you guys come in yet, but they've been doing that for a few times. So hello. So this is a worldwide class. We're right now about near 100 people. So we are going to go ahead and get started in 1 minute. We're going to be doing an experiment here. I'm going to be showing you things. The only thing you really need is a pencil and a piece of paper. If you got the chalk dust and the dish soap and the cream of tartar or something like that, you can use that as well. But I want you to watch me first, and then after this class is over, you will have access to this video. People are not able to find it, so it's really easy. On Facebook, on the left-hand side, you will find a place that says videos, and it's probably, if I'm pointing this way, that means it'll probably be over here. So over here, because everything's mirrored, over here it will say videos, you know, like photos, posts, groups, that kind of thing. One of them will say videos. When you click on videos, Facebook automatically archives this class so you can access it anytime. So just watch with me now. If you've got your materials, don't do this experiment just yet. I want you to follow along with me. Okay, now anytime during the class, if you have a question about what we're talking about, that's when you can go ahead and type it in. So make sure that you keep it on topic, relevant, kid-friendly. We have had to kick kids out and ban them permanently from our site because they were not very nice. So make sure everything is on. We got to keep this very rated G and very kid-friendly. Okay, sound good? If you guys are ready to go, and you've been around the block with me before, what do we say when we're getting ready? So right, if you're ready for doing real science, say, oh yeah. Okay, my name is Aurora. I'm a mechanical engineer, university instructor. I fly airplanes. I'm an astronomer. I work for NASA. And if you are interested in doing real hands-on science, then let's get started. Today we are going to be doing a class in cells and molecules, and we're going to be talking about how math is the language of science and how you have to put those things together for that really to make sense. So if you're a kid and you've learned this math stuff and you're like, what am I ever going to use this for? Today I'm going to show you that as well. So we're going to go into a little more in depth than we've gone in the past. In the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've done chemistry, we've done astronomy, we've done light and lasers, and we focus more on the experimentation phase. And now it's time to start bringing in some of the other tools that you already have. And so nothing fancy, nothing major. This is going to be really fun because it's going to be hands-on and practical. Okay, so I'm going to set up my slides because we have to get going. All right, so you guys ready? If you are ready, say, oh yeah, come on, so I can hear you. Pretend, every time I ask you a question, I want you to shout back the answer. Just pretend I can hear you like you and I are just having a conversation about science. Sound good? Okay, so tell me in your own words, what is a cell? C-E-L-L. And I don't mean a cell phone, and I don't mean a jail cell. We're talking about science, and particularly in biology. What is a cell? Take your wildest guess. If you've never even heard of it before, take a wild guess. And if you do know what it is, you high school kids, I want to hear that as well. What is a cell? You can type it in, or you just tell me out loud. Tell me. Ready, set, go. You got 10 seconds. Go. Okay. So before I answer my own question, let's back up a second. Animals, plants, other living things, they look different from each other on the outside, right? Like an octopus looks nothing like a tulip, right? A tiger doesn't look anything like bacteria, right? They don't look the same on the outside. But on the inside, what makes them all go is the same, and those are cells. Now, a cell is the smallest unit of life that can replicate independently. Okay, and you can see pictures of cells here, and it's like, okay, so what? What is that? Who cares, right? So cells aren't like bags of jelly with a squashy nucleus that floats around inside. They have a cytoskeleton in here that's made of macromolecules, and it's basically like a lattice inside that all the organelles fit into. And all these organelles actually move around on a monorail using motor proteins that actually will transport and get things to one part of the cell, from one part of the cell to another. And they do it kind of like on a monorail system. They use these, it actually walks around. You'll see it here in just a second. And it'll walk its way down these monorail systems. This is inside of a cell that you're actually seeing. This is a simulation that's been created by the folks at Harvard University. They gave permission to Supercharged Science to show all of their animations because they were so excited that they're actually being used. And so this is part of one of their animations. But as you can see, this is actually what's going on, what they think is going on inside the cell. You can actually see it walking along a monorail system, transporting stuff. Isn't that wild? Okay, so before we get into all that though, why do you think cells are so small? Like, so what, why aren't they like, why isn't there just like one giant cell? What are your ideas? Tell me. Why are they so small? What do you think? You got, what, 7 more seconds. Go. Okay, come on. So they're small because they've got to be small enough to be able to do their stuff. Because they're small enough because that's the size they need to do what they need to do. And what does else do? What's the thing that they do? Well, they're small because they've got to get things, things got to get in and out through something called diffusion, like oxygen gets in that way, carbon dioxide, that sort of thing. But they're big enough to hold the stuff that they need, but small enough to get the job done effectively. Let me explain. You imagine like a stack of wood blocks. You ever played with these things? Not just Legos, but like the ones I guess you could use Legos. But anyway, so like a stack of blocks. If you were to stack those blocks into a giant pyramid, three-dimensional pyramid, and I gave you a can of paint and I said, go ahead and paint the blocks, and you were just to paint the outside, would you use less paint or more paint than if you were to take each block and cover each one in paint? Which one? Yeah, you would use less paint if you just did the pyramid. Why? Because there's some parts in there that don't get painted, right? That are never going to get painted because you can't access them, right? Okay, so because some of those blocks don't ever get paint, you actually won't see them, right? You don't actually see those different sides. So when we have like a giant chunk of sulfur, for example, and we put it in a reaction, the only part of that sulfur chunk that's going to react is like the paint on the blocks on the outside. It's just going to be the outside that is exposed to do its chemical reaction. If we were to take that same chunk of sulfur and break it into small little pieces, like powdery, small pieces of particles, like a powder, or even like chunks of like pebbles, all of a sudden that reaction has more sulfur because it's just like the blocks. It's like breaking the blocks apart. Imagine like a little kid came in and pow, blocks are everywhere. Now you can see much more of the surface, right? The surface area of each block is available to be looked at, to be interacted with. That's why in chemistry, we don't just say drop a chunk of aluminum in. We actually want to grate that finely first. We'll use zinc dust instead of a chunk of zinc, for example, because we want as much surface area, as much of that thing as possible to do its reaction. Cells are the same way. They are a certain shape and size that allows them to have as much surface area as they can while still being big enough to hold the stuff inside. Okay, so cells have this. You can also think about it. Somebody was asking about the tissue box example. Yes, I've used that before. So if you can imagine a box of tissues, if the box itself was just one tissue, right, you'd like use it once and throw the whole thing away. But because it's got all these little sheets inside, you get more bang for your buck, right? There's like 200 sheets or 100 sheets inside, right? Even though it's the same size, because of the way it's packaged and divided up, you can use more of it. Okay, so thanks, Charlie. I forgot about that. Okay, so I actually have an experiment I want you to help me with. Ready? If you're ready, say, oh yeah. Okay, regular sheet of paper. Nothing special, nothing yet. Now, once upon a time, you grown-ups probably know what this is. Do you see how they're the same shape, same size? Okay, so these are transparencies. I'm using this so you can see through it. But at home, you don't need this. You just need a sheet of paper. Okay, don't do this yet. This is a good time to start taking some notes. Okay. So these are called transparencies, and once upon a time we used to write on them, and whatever was written on here was projected onto the wall, but that part's not important. I'm just using it because it's see-through. Now, this is the same surface area, right? If I have two of these sheets, both of them have the same surface area, right? Same amount is exposed on both sides, right? Now we're going to talk about how surface area and volume are two different things. Now I can take this sheet and I can roll it up into a tube, right? But depending on which way I roll, I'm going to get two different tubes, right? I can get long and skinny, or I can get short and fat. Now, between the two shapes, are they the same surface area? The answer is yes, absolutely. Do they hold the same volume? Well, I don't know. It probably should, right? They don't look all that different. Let's take a look. So I've already taped mine together. This one here is this sheet of paper. See, it's the same size. And it's wrapped around like that. And I just taped it into place. So I already took care of that, so I didn't spill this on camera. We're going to spill it in just a second. Then I took this sheet of paper, and instead of wrapping it tall and skinny, now I've wrapped it short and fat, and I taped it into place. And that's what this guy is. You see how they're the same? Okay, so what am I going to do? The question is, you got three choices. When I remove this one, I'll do it slow so you can see it. Is the popcorn going to be at the same height? Is it going to overflow, or is it going to be shorter? Which one do you think? Well, let's try it. Okay, so here it goes. Can you see it? Let me hold it so it doesn't creep out the bottom. Look at that. That's like a lot different, isn't it? So what happened? So even though these two shapes were made out of the same sheet of paper, same surface area, they can hold different amounts depending on the geometry of the thing. This is where the math part is sneaking in. Okay, so what if I were to, you could do this again. It turns out that short and fat holds more than tall and skinny. So what if I take this sheet of paper and I cut it this way and tape these together so I get an even shorter, fatter one. So I start changing the size, but I'm still only using one sheet. That's what this is. Should we try this guy? I actually haven't tried this one yet. So this is one sheet of paper I've just taped, so it's even shorter and fatter. So let's see how he does. Ready? Here we go. Now look at that. It only comes up like that much. Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so cells are like this flattened cylinder shape. They're actually not and actually the most effective, the most efficient shape for surface area and volume is a sphere. But cells aren't spheres. You ever wondered about that? It's like, well, if that's the best one, what? So cells are more like flattened cylinders because that's the size they need in order to hold all their stuff and the surface area, so that it's a good balance between surface area and volume. So they're exactly the right size to maximize the surface area when compared to volume, but not so small that they can't fit anything they need inside. Okay, so we're all made out of cells, like trillions and trillions of cells, right? And those cells help us do all kinds of things. Every cell has a special job, right? It could detect light, sense touch, carry oxygen, digest food. There's like over 200 jobs that cells can do just in your body alone. So the question I have is, well, how does every cell know what it's supposed to do? I mean, you know, if your jobs got mixed up at home, right, you might have problems. Your toddler might be trying to drive the car and your dad might, you know, be playing video games all day, right? Okay, so you don't want to, you know, just have the 7-year-old cooking dinner. So it's important to know who's doing what. You know, one time I asked my 12-year-old to help me with shopping, and it was so fun because I got to see how he actually thought a shopping trip should go. His whole shopping cart was filled entirely with cereal. But at his level, that was perfect, right? But it's a good thing that, you know, mom was able to add some apples in there and stuff and the milk. Okay, so our cells need to be told what to do, right? Just like grown-ups, they have their own specific jobs that they either choose to do or are told to do, right? Okay, so who tells a cell what to do? Okay, it's a very special molecule called a DNA, which I actually showed you a slide of just a second ago. Whoops, that's not the slide. There we go. Okay. It's a special. We're actually going to talk about this in another class a little bit later. Actually, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. A little bit later this week would be on Wednesday. We're going to talk about DNA. But cells, basically, what I want you to know is they were totally invisible to scientists until scientists invented the microscope. And we talked about microscopes yesterday. So if you missed that, don't worry. You can still access it in the video archives on the Facebook page. So you can watch that anytime. Okay, so while you technically can measure the size of a molecule, despite the fact that it's even too small to see even with it. You can't see molecules with just a regular microscope, like the kind you'll get in like high school or something like that. You can't actually see the molecule, but you can figure out a clever way, which I'm going to show you in just a second, of how you can actually measure a molecule. We technically can't measure the size of a molecule just optically by looking at it, and it has nothing to do with, well, because our technology isn't there yet, or we're just not smart enough. It actually has to do with the limits of nature and wavelength itself. Because molecules are smaller than a wavelength, we're not able to optically see it. But we can detect it in other ways, and that's what we're going to do in our experiment. Are you ready? Okay, so I thought it'd be really cool if I taught you how to measure the size of a molecule. So this is a really cool experiment we're going to do together. So again, if you've just joined us, my name's Aurora with Supercharged Science. We're doing life science and biology, and we're taking a look at cells, and we're going to learn how to measure the size of a molecule right now. Now, don't forget this link down here, if you're just noticing that, that's for tomorrow's class. Tomorrow's class is not on Facebook Live. Make sure you register at www.superchargedscience.com/biology or bioclass. Both of those will work. /bioclass, BIOCLASS. And so you will get the registration link for tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to talk more on DNA. So how do you measure the size of a molecule? So just watch me first, take a couple of notes as we go. You can take some screenshots as we go. You ready? Okay, so here we go. How do you measure a molecule? Have you ever wondered exactly how big a molecule is? I mean, you've heard about molecules are the building blocks of matter. Well, how big is that building block anyway? And what does it really mean? What does a molecule look like? Well, technically, we can measure the size of a molecule. However, we can't see the molecule itself. And the reason has to do with the limit to the nature of wavelengths of light, and not because, well, our technology just isn't there yet, or maybe we're just not smart enough to figure it out. It actually has to do with nature itself. And so scientists, they have to get really creative about the ways that they measure something that's not even possible to see. Now here's one way to approximate the size of a molecule using just a few things from your kitchen. You're going to need some liquid dish soap. You're going to need some very fine dust. In a laboratory in high school or college, you'll be given lycopodium. But for this experiment, you can use chalk dust. That'll work well. And so just something that's light and powdery. Now, if you don't have any of these things, just try a few things that you've already got around the house and see if they work. Okay, then you're also going to need a medicine dropper, and you're going to need a pie pan or some dish to do this in that's got a rim on it, because we're going to be filling this with water. Speaking of which, you're going to need some water, and you're also going to need a calculator as well as a ruler. Okay, now this is a protractor, but I'm just going to be using the ruler measurement on this side. Okay, so let me show you what you need to do. So the first thing you want to do is pour some water into your pie pan. It doesn't really matter how much, as long as you've got the bottom covered. Okay, now your next step is you actually have to do a couple of steps really quickly, so just get it out and ready. We're going to be sprinkling this on the surface as soon as we're ready, but if you sprinkle it too early, it'll mix and dissolve, and that's not what we want. What we want is a layer of this dust on top of the surface. Okay, but we're not ready to do that yet. So what we need to do is we need to put some of our soap into our dropper. Okay, and we're only going to be using one drop, so don't go crazy on this. You couldn't actually hear that, could you? How about we try that again? Sorry. If you're wondering why we're watching the video, it's because this one was so zoomed in. I wanted to make sure that you could see it because the cameras here weren't set up for that. So I recorded this, so we're going to watch me do this. The second thing is, if you don't have a dropper, you can use a what do you call it? You can use a straw with over the end and kind of put it in and then lift it out. As long as you've got one drop in there, if you use more than a drop, this experiment isn't going to work. So make sure you somehow stick a pinky, wiggle off one drop, and then it should work just fine. Okay, ready? Let's try that again. So what we're going to do is we are going to let one drop form at the tip. And we want to let it form and not actually drop off like that. But we're going to let it form and just hang there, and quickly we're going to measure how big that drop is using our ruler. So go ahead and do that right now. Now if you're using chalk dust, you can either scrape it off your kid's easel after you give them some chalk and they're totally plain in the morning and just sprinkle it on top, or you can use a cheese grater. Okay, now you're going to have to be quick about this. Get your ruler in there, and you're going to place one drop of soap into the pan, only one drop, and then as it spreads out, you're going to measure how big it is. Okay, I get about an average of 5 inches. So before it was 1/8 of an inch, and now that drop has spread out to be 1 molecule thick and 5 inches in diameter. Now let me show you, what do you do with these two sizes? Well, you have to do a little bit of math, but it's not too scary and it's not too hard. Let me show you. Okay, so what did we do with that experiment? Well, we had a drop coming out of the end of a pipe, right? The pipette, the dropper. Okay, we're going to assume that it's a sphere. We measured this diameter, and I got that was equal to 1/8 of an inch. Okay, but then what did we do? Well, we had a pie pan, right? And then we put the drop in the pie pan. It spread all the chalk out to make a shape like this that was about between 5 and 5.5. So I'm going to call it 5.25 inches because I did it 3 times. Okay, and it's the average of my 3 tests. Okay, so this one drop that was 1/8 of an inch, that was like a ball, like a marble, a sphere, spread out to be something the size of a disc that's only 1 molecule high. Okay, this is not drawn to scale. So this would be 5.25 or 5.25 inches wide. But it's really, really, really thin. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have to figure out, well, what is this thickness here? Okay, so we're going to call that the thickness of the molecule. So we'll call that big D, say. Okay, pause there for just a second. All right, so you younger kids who are like kindergarten, first, second grade, your job right now is to go get like an index card or a thicker sheet of paper, thicker than this, and what you do is you are going to run to the bathtub and fill it full of water, or the bathtub actually works the best because it's longer, and you're going to cut out this shape. You see this? I promise, we'll get back to the math in just a second. Make that shape and lift up the tab in the back. Okay, so make this shape. And then you're going to put this in the bathtub. Now this only works if the bathtub doesn't have any soap in it or sink doesn't have any soap. You're going to set this in the bathtub and it will stay afloat. Now do you remember what happened when we dropped that one thing of soap in? Yeah, it pushed everything away. That's what soap does. So what you can do is you can make a tiny little boat like this, little lightweight boat. Aluminum foil is a little too heavy. Make a little lightweight boat. And then stick your finger in the shampoo bottle or in something with soap or the dish soap and just stick your finger and then gently touch the water right here and the boat will shoot forward. So go ahead and you can try different shapes of boats. You can try different kinds of soap to figure out which one shoots the boat the furthest. Okay, you got it? Okay, so littler kids, off you go to go play. Make yourself a boat. It was really simple. Index cards work really well because they tend to stay afloat a little longer because they're a little thicker. But if paper's all you got, then that's what you're using. And then stick it back there and see if you can do a second one or if you have to clean it in order for it to happen again. I don't know. All right, little kids, go do that now. I'll see you in about 5 minutes. Bigger kids, how do we figure that out? How do we figure out that thickness? It's really simple. Check this out. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to find the volume of the sphere, okay? The volume for a sphere, if you've never done that, it's this formula. 4 divided by 3 times something called pi, which is just a number. It's not like blueberry pie or pumpkin pie. It's just a number that's 3.14, okay? It's what you get when you work with circles and when you do more geometric things, okay? You'll see pi coming out all the time. So this is 4 divided by 3 times 3.14, so it's 4/3 pi. And then we're going to say r times itself 3 times. So r times r times r. So r cubed is what we say and call that. So r cubed. So r is the radius. Radius, if diameter is the distance all the way across, radius is just halfway across. So if this is 1/8 all the way across, okay, or if this was 1 inch all the way across, the radius would be 1/2 inch. You see that? So we just divide by 2. So the radius of the drop is going to be 1/2 times the diameter, which is 1/2 times 1/8 inch. Okay? And so 2 times 8 is what? 16, right? So the radius is 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so now we'll put this into my scary looking calculator. And we're going to take 4, we're going to divide it by 3, and then we're going to multiply it by pi. Okay, so we get 4.189. Then we're going to multiply it by 1/16, multiply by 1/16, multiply by 1/16. So we're taking 1/16 times itself 3 times, and then multiplying it by this thing that we just did. Okay, so 16 inverse, and we're taking it to the 3 power. Multiply it together. I'm going to get a volume for the thing that's pretty small. It's 0.001023. Now what unit is that in? That's actually in inches cubed, because everything was in inches here. Okay. So scientists, if you're curious, they'll write this as let me write that in scientific notation, 1.023 times 10 to the minus 3 inches cubed. Okay, so that's the volume of the sphere. You might be saying, okay, why do we need to know that? Well, let's take a look. So we did the volume of sphere. The volume of this, we're going to assume it's a cylinder. We're going to say, well, this shape, it was about round. Scientists do this all the time. That way you can use math to figure out some stuff, what's going on in the real world. We don't say exactly what this shape is. We just say, plus and minus a little bit, it's a circle. So math is actually the language of science, and so that's what we're doing here. Okay, so it's about 5¼ inches across. So let me move this up here. So what we're saying basically is we have a very short soda can. Okay? The height of the soda can is what we're looking for. That's the size of the molecule. Okay? Because we're saying it's 1 molecule size high. Okay? And this was that 5½. Okay? The size of my soda can, the diameter of my soda can is 5¼ inches. Okay? So can we write a volume for a cylinder? Yeah, there's an equation for that. It's got to do with, can you see how we're going to need information about the height of the cylinder as well as how big the cylinder is around? For example, if I gave you some soda and I said, how much soda did you drink today? And you say 3 cans. And I said, well, how much is that exactly? How many milliliters? How many ounces? Well, you'd need to know, if the cylinder was fatter, you'd have more volume, right? If the cylinder was skinnier, you'd have less volume. Likewise, if the cylinder was taller, it'd be more volume, and shorter, it'd be less. Okay, so these things are needed in the volume equation for a cylinder. So the volume for a cylinder, CYL, is going to be the area of a circle. Do you remember this? If not, it's okay. There's that pi number again. Okay, pi r squared. R is the radius here. Okay, so that's pi r squared, and then multiply it. So we did this top part here. We found the area here, but now we need to multiply it by the height. And that gives us the volume. Okay, so the height is going to be big D, and that's what we're looking for. So here's the trick. We already know what the volume is. We found it up here. So because it's the same drop that was at the end of the pipette that drops into here, it's the same volume. It's the same thing. So we know the volume just got stretched out, and we're saying, okay, it got same volume. So this is 1.023 times 10 to the minus 3 inches. Okay, so that's equal to 1.023 times 10 to the minus 3 inches. Just another way of writing it. That says E and that says 10. It's the same thing. Okay, so now all we have to do is we say, all right, so I have this equation here. I know this is equal to 3.14. I know my radius, right? I measured it up here. Well, I know the diameter. I could get my radius from there, right? What's half of 5? Half of 5 is 2½. What's half of a quarter? It's 12.5, right? So I can write here that my radius for this cylinder here is going to be equal to 2.625 inches. Okay, so you may be saying, okay, but how do we get that? I didn't take that much math. Okay, that's all right. I'll help you out here. So let's rewrite this equation here. So my volume is going to be equal to pi r squared d. I want to find d equals something. I want to solve the equation for that. So I divide both sides by pi r squared. Pi r squared. This cancels out because it's in the top and the bottom. This cancels out because it's in the top and the bottom. I'm only left with d. So I'm going to say d is equal to this thing, volume over pi r squared. My d is going to be equal to volume, which is 0.001023 inches cubed, divided by a number that's 3.14159, and it goes on forever, times the radius we found as 2.625 inches. So d, when you plug it into a calculator, is you just take this number and we divide it. And we divide it by pi, and we get a really small number, 0.000124 inches. So the soap molecule has an approximate size of this. Now, if you want to write it in scientific notation, it's 124 times 10 to the minus 6 inches. Or you could write it as 124 e minus 6 if you're super lazy. Okay, that's the approximate size of the soap molecule. Now, soap doesn't really look like an atom. It's more like one of these things. It's got a long tail of hydrocarbons. This is where your carbon and your hydrogens hang out. And what this end wraps itself around dirt. It loves dirt, but it hates water. And so this is the part, this is actually where surface tension comes into play. If you've ever filled a cup to the brim but not overflowing, so it's got this bubble layer that's on top, it's because all these little molecules are like this because they're trying to stay away as far as possible from the water. But all the head of the soap molecule loves water. And so that's what makes soap so interesting. So one end is hydrophilic, it loves water, and one end is hydrophobic, it hates water, it's afraid of it. So anyway, so what we found is that the size of this thing, we approximated it to be about 124 times 10 to the minus 6 inches. Now, if you're wondering, well, is this measurement this height here, or is it this thing here? And this is the approximate length of the soap molecule. Now, if you want to convert this to millimeters or micrometers, let me show you how. So we have 124 times 10 to the minus 6 inches. And then we can say there's 2.54 centimeters per inch. I'm going to do this longhand in case you've never seen this. So the inches cancel out. And the reason we can do this is a clever form of 1. This thing equals 1 because there's 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch. Okay, so we can multiply the top and bottom. The top and bottom equal the same thing. Okay, so we can do that, and we can be clever about how we do that. So now this will convert it to centimeters, but that's not what we want. We want millimeters. There's 10 millimeters in every centimeter. This is also a clever form of 1. So centimeters cancel out, and I'm left with millimeters. So my diameter of the molecule is approximately this number times 2.54 times 10. Okay, and I get the molecule is just about 3.15 micrometers. Okay, or 3.15 times 10 to the minus 3 millimeters. Okay, because a millimeter, if you write this in terms of meters, 3.15 times 10 to the minus 6 meters. Okay, because there are 1,000 millimeters in every meter. Okay, so there you have it. The size of the molecule for soap is this size. So what'd you think? Did you learn something? All right, so now you know how to use math to figure stuff out. So all we're using with math is we're taking the real world, sticking it on a piece of paper to figure things out, and we're bringing it back to the real world. Now, depending on the type of soap you use, depending on what you use to make it bigger, honestly, I think it could have been even bigger because my pie plate was only like 9 inches. I would actually use a larger pie plate to do the experiment, and actually it would make a larger diameter circle. So you want to make sure like the boundaries of the plate weren't limiting the chalk dust when it expanded out. Now, if you tried the soap experiment with the boat, if you found the boat sunk, that's totally normal because the water is going to saturate paper, right? You have experience there before. So you want to try a new boat every time. And also, you've got to make sure your container's really clean. So if the bathtub still has some soap residue in it from a previous bath, then you probably want to use like a pie plate or a or a shallow dish, you just put a little bit of water in there and touch it, and that way you can rinse it clean and dry it between experiments. So you can give that a try as well. One person emailed in a picture of theirs already, so thank you. That was super sweet. They said it went about 4 feet when she touched it, and pew, by the time it stopped going. But then she also said she tried touching it again and again, but it didn't work. So good job, Cynthia. Good job experimenting. And so I encourage you to try different solutions of soap, different types of molecules for different types of soap molecules. So there's different soap in your shampoo, the different brands of soap in like a bar soap versus the foaming versus the hand versus the dishwashing, and see which ones really make your boat go further. What are we doing? We're doing real science. Science isn't about what you know, it's about how you handle what you don't know. And so what are we doing? We are giving you an experiment, a small little simple experiment, but we're changing variables to answer a question that we don't know the answer to. So this is truly what science is at its core, and this is what we want you kids to do. So it's not enough just to follow my directions and build a catapult. I mean, that's really cool. But then after that, I'm going to say, hey, can you make that catapult go 3 times as far? Can you make the rocket go over the house? Can you shoot this over? And can you make it go even better, even faster, even longer? And so in order to do that, you got to be observant about what's already going on in order to make those changes. Maybe I need a longer lever arm. Maybe I need more elastic potential energy stored up in that rubber band, bigger rubber bands, more rubber bands. Maybe I need 3 spoons on the end, not 6, or whatever. So once you've got the main ideas of what we're doing, now you can start measuring other things, right? Measuring molecules. You can start changing the experiment to really do science. And this is what science is. You have a question, you design an experiment to get the answer to that question. So that's science at its essence. So I hope this has been helpful. We've had a number of people already do the experiments. So you're welcome. You're welcome for, I have a lot of people that said that the math was great. Thank you so much. I'd never seen math used like that in science before. You didn't have to follow all of it. As long as you got the idea that we are using math, putting it on paper to figure things out and then to get an answer, that's all that matters right now. In fact, when I was at graduate school, I remember there was this famous problem. It had 2 solutions, and the instructor could tell who really who had the right answer and who really understood the physics, because one of them it was the size of a beaver, and one of them gave an answer. The beaver was like, I think, 17 inches long, and the other one was like 83 feet. So my math solution was, so when you model the physical world on paper with math, sometimes the math doesn't make sense, and you have to put it back in the real world to realize, okay, I've got 2 solutions to the same problem, which one really makes sense? And so some people were saying, yeah, the beaver was 83 feet long. And you're like, well, they don't come that size. So anyway, so you've got to make sense of the results that you get. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up for today. If you do have more questions, feel free to email me, aurora@superchargedscience.com. If you're joining me for the class tomorrow, we're going to be extracting DNA. We're also going to be doing a lot more in our time together. We're going to be together for about 90 minutes. So it's going to be a real in-depth, deep dive into biology and life science. We're going to do plants and animals. I'm going to teach you how to actually notice that plants have a timer built in. They also can detect gravity and among other things. And they can detect when the sun rises and how do they do that. We're also going to take a look at animals and how to kind of overview it, because honestly, the bite you take in biology is usually way too big. So we're going to kind of back it out so you can start doing biology without getting inundated by tons and tons of tiny little facts. So that'll be tomorrow in our class. In order to do that class, it's not on Facebook Live. You have to register at this link. So make sure you use this link to register. You'll get an email with directions on how to connect to class tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. There's a worksheet that you'll be downloading. I don't know if I have it yet. Nope, I got to download mine, and I got to print mine out. And you'll have that in class for class tomorrow. If you don't have any materials, no problem. Just like today, you can just participate and learn everything you can, and then take some notes so you can see what the experiment is. And then after we're done, you can actually go and do your experiment using the stuff that you have. And honestly, the things that I put on that list, you can substitute most of those things out. So it'll be really super simple. So if you have some squashy vegetables, that's really what we need most of all. So if you don't want to eat your broccoli, this is a perfect opportunity to say, hey, Mom, I need this for science. I couldn't possibly eat it. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock Pacific. Make sure you sign up for the link. On Thursday and Friday, we will be back here doing our Facebook Live classes that you do not have to register for. So Thursday and Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, Facebook classes here. All right, I will see you guys soon. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon.